to the moon and let me sing upon the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. I have a feeling you love somebody else. You never know. I think I prefer to watch you. Oh, we are in Vegas, aren't we? In other words,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It's good to meet you at this UFO Con. Who is your favorite speaker?
Gosh, well, I haven't heard all of them. I think I like them all. Well, for me, it started very young. I was always kind of interested in some, spiritual or psychic phenomenon. In fact, when I was 16 years old, I was very interested in pyramids. And I was talking to a friend of mine at high school, and she said she knew the Pyramid Man. I said, the Pyramid Man? There's a Pyramid Man? So she told me where he lived in my hometown of Laguna Beach. His name was Dr. Frederick William Bell, and his great uncle invented the telephone. And his father, when he was very young, worked for Henry Ford, and his father, Alan Bell, invented the automatic transmission and the alternator for Henry Ford. Fred worked on the shockwave of the atomic bomb at the age of 15 at the University of Michigan under Dr. Leonard Katz. The government drafted him into the military and received a PhD in physics at the age of 17. He then worked in the top radar sets near San Francisco and Point Reyes, which is the farthest westernmost point on the continental United States. And during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they were observing extraterrestrial spacecraft coming down at 15,000 miles an hour and heading down to Cuba, where they were watching the unfolding drama between the Soviets and the Americans as the Soviets were attempting to establish some nuclear bases. And he was very upset that they were burning these reports. And so the military had set him up, and they put him in a straitjacket, and they gave him an honorable discharge when he requested to be let out of the Army. He then went to work with NASA on the Saturn, Gemini, and Apollo missions, and he also worked with JPL and Rockwell. And he was a very intelligent man and refused to work in the military aspects for the government. And so I think the extraterrestrials chose him for contact. And when I was about 17 years old, we started to observe some spaceships from the Pleiadians, who he was in contact with, were coming around the house late at night.
It's a real spaceship or just a cloud?
Oh no, these are real spaceships. We could see them at night. And when you come to my conference, you'll be able to see videos. We take lots of videos, and you'll actually see your own spaceship on Friday night. Wow. It's going to be really fun. So it's an exciting, it's an exciting field. Most of the media doesn't take it seriously because the governments refuse to acknowledge the truth, because the governments have a strong vested interest to keep the people ignorant to the truth, because if they were to realize the extraterrestrials were actually here, they would have to openly acknowledge them, and then that would open up a can of worms that would end the financial system, and the corruption in the military, and the control of the education, and the suppression of technology for healing and for free energy, which the government consciously has. Unfortunately, we have criminal elements in pretty much all the world governments. So the extraterrestrials have decided to take it to we the people, to those spiritual and interested persons who are able to just tell the truth from their heart. You know, it's a big responsibility. At the same time, you take a lot of heat in this position. My feeling is that the country is polarizing now, and people are taking hard sides, but they really don't have enough ability to discern the truth, because the media is kind of controlled. You look at, you have CNN and MSNBC talking about Russia and how Trump's bad, and you have Fox News and other channels talking about how Trump is good. And this is the way that they work. They pit man against woman, rich against poor, Hindu against Christian, Muslim against Jew, China against Russia, Russia against Israel, India against Pakistan. Divide and conquer. If people are running around in fear from vaccinations and pandemics that are created in bioweapon laboratories designed for depopulation, it's very difficult for people to stop working and think about the higher things in life. We're pretty much hamsters on a treadmill, and it's time that the truth be told, and that people stop supporting the bellicose militarists, the religious potentiates, and the oligarchs, the criminals who have created a false, illusory financial system that is basically a Ponzi scheme, central banking, fiat currency money system that keeps people disempowered. It's time that people wake up to the truth and understand that the power rests within their decisions, their choices, to no longer to participate in wars for profit, in the destruction of human life, in the genetic engineering of not only our biology, but of our foods. There's a tremendous challenge facing mankind in the future, and as the Venusians tell us, it's through cooperation in the spirit of love and truth that things can change.
I saw your video about Cobra. Cobra is a very secret person, playing hide and seek with people. How do you catch him and put him in front of your mic?
Well, I've known him since he started his blog many years ago. I don't work with him too much anymore. I don't think it's necessary to be secret. But I find his information somewhat interesting. Some things I agree with and some things I don't. I think that, if God is with you, who can be against you? There's no need to hide, I don't think. I don't really like to work with the government agents that are working with the disclosure of the governments. Unfortunately, they don't really know the truth, and they can't really reveal the truth. The government does have secret space programs, but I'm looking for direct face-to-face contactees and receiving more spiritual information as opposed to what the government is choosing to release to the people and what's taking place. That's just my personal preference. Well, ascension is kind of a buzzword used by a lot of New Age people, but in reality, we need to understand the true nature of what ascension means. Ascension means to elevate, to step up, and what that means is in frequency. When we think of the Master Jesus Christ, who ascended and resurrected, he was a very special soul with a very special incarnation. Most people don't recognize the importance of that incarnation. Now, I'm not into a personality worship cult, but Jesus Christ, through his life and every action, demonstrated a lot of universal principles for us. And through his, sacrifice and choosing to allow himself to be killed, he proved his love for humanity. And through his resurrection and ascension, he proved his divinity. But he also said, greater things you shall do. So, unfortunately, we have a situation here where we don't follow the natural laws. The Venusians follow three main principles of love, light, and life. And light is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So the knowledge and the truth of the power of the universal laws are kept hidden from us because we have been a very aggressive humanity through the history of our life and our evolution. We have had subtle, actually extraterrestrial intervention in the past that has been involved in genetic altering and, in fact, are the architects of many of the problems that we have on Earth. And until people wake up to the truth and refuse to participate in these negative programs of fear, of hate, of judgment, we won't be ascending. But we have to tune in to the truth that all the great teachers taught. Buddha taught that there's a way to enlightenment. Christ taught unconditional love and forgiveness, and living by the golden rule. It's a pretty positive message. And so it's time that we stop killing and murdering these great teachers and start listening to them and stop listening to those forces that want to maintain their positions of control and power. And the planet will ascend, but it's going to be some time. There's kind of a fallacy, I believe, going around. A lot of people think we're going to ascend in a minute, but we have a lot of serious problems here on Earth, and until we achieve a greater knowledge of the hidden hand that manipulates our world through media, through control of the military, the financial system, the educational system, and the suppression of truth, we're bound to repeat the histories and that we've found ourselves in, and we just have to stop hurting each other. It's pretty simple, but we're easily manipulated. I mean, look in America now, you see polarization of people between Republican and Democrat, and pretty much there's criminals on both sides of the aisle, and they've created a dielectric that really only gives you two choices, and both choices are pretty pathetic, if you ask me. So ascension is a very positive thing that we can look forward to, and it will happen on an individual basis. It does not happen on a mass planetary scale, at least not for quite some time. I think this will be my sixth conference in Mount Shasta, but I do host conferences when I take tours around the world. I do conferences in Hawaii and South America. As I said, I go to Peru, Egypt. I've been to China. I've been to Japan. I've been to Australia, Europe, and Canada. I think whatever interests people is always interesting to me, but I answer any questions that people have. Well, I would have to say the commander of the moon base that I was able to interview through my friend was pretty amazing. And the security chief, they're quite long-lived on Venus, so she's at least 500 years old. And the other gentleman that was holding the camera for the interview, he's 2,400 years old.
2,400?
They have a very advanced technology that exposes the nucleonic acids to specific types of radiation. They call it the Vril technology that causes a temporal shift in the DNA. And we're approaching this technology. It can't be held from us. My friend Raymond Keller, of course, Omnic, and one of my deceased friends, Fred Bell, of course, and I think Dr. Frank Stranges, who was a pastor and FBI work with Edgar Hoover and was a Secret Service agent, investigator, who met Valiant Thor at the Pentagon and ended up going on board his ship quite a bit and carrying a lot of teachings. And I'm continuing to carry on that legacy of sharing the truth with the people. I have a conference in Mount Shasta, August 26th through the 30th of August in 2020. It's going to be in my hometown of Mount Shasta, California. And if people are interested, they can go to my website, thepromiserevealed.com. And I'm going to be having several people. One is a friend of mine. Her name is Omnek Onek. She was born on Venus on the fifth dimension, and she has lowered her vibration to the physical plane of Earth, and attesting that the Venusians wanted to do about people lowering their vibration to see how their bodies would acclimatize to the physical plane of Earth. Another person I'm having her name is Sarah Adams. She's a psychic and intuitive. And then another good friend of mine, her name is Laura Eisenhower. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the president's granddaughter. And I also have another friend named Luis Mostojo Fernando Martins. He's from South America. He's been a contactee like me since he was very young and has been having quite a few experiences. He's been to the artificial moon Ganymede. He's been inside the Earth to several inner retreats of the Great White Brotherhood, part of the Atlantean patriarchs that live underneath the surface of the planet in South America. He's also been to Venus, and a very kind, gentle soul. He speaks at various locations around the world, and I take tours down to South America to his property on Lake Titicaca. We go to Machu Picchu and quite a few of the sacred sites down in South America. Another person I'm going to be having is Lorian Fenton, who put on this event. She'll be my keynote speaker. I also have a very talented crystal bowl, and she does training in healing. Her name is Jamie Liu. And then I have another friend of mine. His name is Dr. Raymond Keller. And I think you heard a little bit of my presentation today. He was able to arrange for me to have an interview with some Venusians. And I was able to be honored to present the first actual interview with an extraterrestrial who's actually announced that she's from Venus, and she allowed herself to be photographed. And I had submitted 14 questions, of which they accepted 8. And they answered quite a few questions on that. And so Raymond, my friend who got to live on Venus for 8 weeks in 2012 through 2013, and he was very kind to intercede on my behalf and to ask his contacts if they would answer some questions for me. So I've been ongoing in a series of dialogues of questions in regards to the history of the Earth, the Venusians' interactions, how they view our society, why they're here, what they feel about human consciousness and how we can develop ourselves and why they're here. I have another gentleman named Gavin Hukasian, and he is a very talented martial artist. He does things like run up walls and does flips. He's very athletic. He'll be teaching some Qigong exercises and some training exercises. My friend Luis from South America, also in the evening, he will be taking us up on the mountain. Where we will witness, as we always do, many spaceships come and visit our groups to give people the faith and to understand that there is an ongoing attempt to establish open communication with the people of the Earth. Unfortunately, our world's governments are pretty corrupt, and our military and financial system and many of the systems that we have on the earth make it difficult for the peaceful advanced civilization of the Venusians to make any formal contact through the government. So I'm very honored that Raymond was allowed to arrange for me to have I think it was about an 18-minute interview on November 20th, which was 67 years to the exact hour that George Adamski had his contact in the desert with Raymond's friend. So there's some other people coming in this conference, but you can check it out on the
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be very fun.
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I hope to see you up there this summer in Mount Shasta, and I hope the guests will be interested and check out my website, thepromiserevealed.com, and you can read under Truth References and lots of videos and interviews and stuff that people can check out to learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Millie.
Thank you. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. How many times you have been here?
Oh, I've been to many all around the country, but this one is my third UFO conference, 2020 it's called. And I had a great time with great people, and there's speakers talking about everything about UFOs and extraterrestrials. It's a great time. Paul Hynek. Paul's the son of J. Allen Hynek, who used to head up Project Blue Book for the U.S. Air Force, which investigated UFO cases. And Paul has been a great guest on mine on Coast to Coast, my radio show, and he just does a great job. But I got to tell you, they all do great jobs here. All the speakers are good. I'm very spiritual. I've always been spiritual. I may not be necessarily religious, but I'm a believer in some kind of divine intelligence, that something created us, and something created extraterrestrials too. We're not alone in the universe. There's something else out there. When I was 11 years old, I had my first experience. I had an out-of-body experience. And after that, I became hooked on the paranormal and the unusual and started investigating UFOs and extraterrestrials, and I never stopped. At 11 years old, I keep doing what I'm doing now. I'm 203.
Wow.
I haven't met any aliens that I know of, but who knows what's out there? You never know. They may have called my radio show. I never know. I get knowledge, additional knowledge about what's happening in this universe, and you pick up different perspectives from different people, because all the speakers bring something different to the table. They all talk about things that they're very good at, that their expertise is good at, and it's all different. But when you add them all together, it comes up to one final conclusion, that we are not alone in the universe. Next conference will probably be at Contact in the Desert in Indian Wells, California. I also have the Ozark Mountain UFO events that I have to go to. It never stops. It keeps me busy all over the planet.
You sing very nice. So you learn from where?
I learned self-taught. My mother helped me a long time ago. I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. My family was there, and I just learned it and studied it and picked it up on my own. Nobody taught me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you like the songs?
Yeah, very good.
You hear me say that I'm so lucky to be loving you. It's been a long day. Don't be so much in a hurry. Time after time, I tell myself that Linda Miller, folks. So lucky to be loving you. Give me this so lucky to be the one you run to see in the evening when the day is through. Oh, baby, it's true. I only know what I know. The passing years may show. You've kept my love so young, so good, so tired.